What's good, internet? Faded Gamer here, and today I'm going to talk about the RPG that's not open world, but very spacious, The Outer Worlds. This here is Captain Jimmy Two Shoes. He's the current captain of the Unreliable. He's just having a little meeting with his crew. While he's doing that, I just wanted to get out the way that I really did enjoy this game, and I would recommend it if you're a fan of Fallout New Vegas, Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic, and if you're a fan of Borderlands. I played a little bit of Borderlands before, and this game does give me that vibe, but I'll get to that in detail a little bit later. Now, I haven't put a lot of energy into following this game before it launched. I did know of it since from the launch trailer that happened so many years ago, and from that I kind of got the vibe that this game was going to be like New Vegas in the sense that you could rob, steal, and kill any random civilian you wanted to. They have that type of freedom in this game, but it isn't a open world game. I have to stress that it's very spacious, but it's not an open world game, which is it's a good thing. I like it because it helps you keep more focused on the story, which is the main part, which is the main thing about this game. And you get that because this is Obsidian, and I'm thinking Obsidian is really good with stories because I remember New Vegas, and that was the game that I played some of the Knights of the Old Republic, but I didn't beat that game. I got a lot closer with New Vegas, and seeing that game, it was actually very good. And I liked how there was different factions that you needed to, you could either make buddies or you could make enemies with, and they have that same type of dynamic in this game, along with a lot of humor. That's what I like and that tells me something about how the Obsidian Studios like to make their games, and which is interesting. And really, that's all I know about the overall history of the studio for this game. That they've been partnered with Bethesda for New Vegas, and they've done a lot of other RPG style games, and they're really good story. It definitely shows in this game with its humor and just the many different dialogue options you can do, or maybe just go out for an attack option. It even gives you that on the options, which is pretty funny. However, I'm going to start this review off with what I disliked about this game, and a couple of criticisms here and there. I'm going to be honest, I overall have more likes than dislikes about this game, so it's going to be really short, and I'm going to keep it to the point. One of the main things I disliked, which is more of I guess it can be a criticism too, was the leveling. The leveling part was fine. There's a moderate amount of choices for companions, but for the companions and for yourself when you level, the one thing I really disliked, and it's also, I'd say, a legitimate criticism, would be you have to apply them. You have to just press an extra button, and there's been a couple of times where I would get out of doing the leveling up part and forget the apply, pressing square for apply, and then I just go around. Thankfully, I don't think I went into a battle before I actually double checked to see if the perks were working, because it was kind of one of those things that annoyed me, is that I had to make sure that I applied them, and then I feel like that could have just been cut down to one button to help make things go a little bit quicker, a little bit less annoying. But aside from that's one dislike I have. I'd say the second and probably final one I have about this game is it is relatively short. I would have wished for more maps to explore, because like I said earlier, I am a fan of exploring games, so I would have been welcome to go to some of the other planets out there. Like, could we have gone to Olympus, even though Olympus was a gas giant? Could we have gone to a space station on Olympus somewhere, or one of the other, there are two other planets that we could go to. Well, we have on that space map, but we couldn't actually go to or land on or visit or explore in. And I feel like that may be coming for DLC. I'll do some speculation toward the end of this video, but for now, I have to say that, however, it was a short game, but it was a sweet game, in other words. And if it would have been a little bit longer, I would have enjoyed it even more. One of the things I liked about this game were the bugs. Don't get me wrong, this game is quite polished. The only bugs and or glitches I would find would be with the companions, and usually just it's them being vertically handicapped, as Ellie just demonstrated there. Another thing I like about this game is its humor. It really shows that the game creators had fun making this game. Now maybe it's a bit of a motivation to kind of one-up Bethesda, maybe because they didn't get the opportunity to make Fallout 5, or I'm not too sure, because this game does feel like Fallout in space in sometimes, but one of the distinct factors from Fallout is its humor. That and the color palette, which I'm gonna get into in just a moment, but the humor, I find it hilarious. There's just points in this game where it doesn't get, it's not overbearing, the humor, in the sense that it's completely goofy game where you can't really take things serious. There are moments in this game where you get serious, and the humor comes in at times, and it helps bring moments of levity, and it doesn't really take away from the atmosphere of a serious moment, but it does help give you that nice little pep up, because it can get things can get kind of dark in this game depending on what stories you do, because there is a lot of lore to this game, just like how in Fallout and in the Elder Scrolls game. If you were to go around to the world, you find different books or data pads or whatnot, you read them, you find more about the lore of the surrounding area, and there's a lot of that in this game, and it's very detailed. That's actually another thing I do like about this game too, is the humor comes in those data pads as well, because it's usually like offices, you're going into abandoned offices or houses, and you see these personal notes and you see the personalities of the people who lived in them, which is the funny part, and then you kind of see what happened to them when you look around and see. That's like the serious part, but all of that goes into, I'd say, good storytelling. So that's actually another thing I like about this game, is its storytelling. The story is that you're a frozen member of the colony ship Hope, sent from Earth to the Halcyon colony, filled with a whole bunch of scientists and engineers, Earth's best and brightest, to make the Halcyon colony better, more technologically advanced, I guess. They had like over 10,000 people or so inside that ship. But something happens along the way there, which causes them to get out of their skip drive. I forgot the name of the drive, but it's the thing that gets them that lets them travel long distances really quickly. They jump out of that drive, and they're forced to use their regular engines to get to Halcyon. But the problem is, it's going to take them 10 or 15 years longer, and they don't have enough food for that. So what happens is, by the time the ship, the Hope, gets to Halcyon, all of the skeleton crew that were working to fly the ship they're all dead, and just been basically programmed to fly to Halcyon with the frozen people in there. And another problem is, when the board finds the ship, they can't just thaw all of the frozen colonists, because something happens if you're frozen for too long, that your body turns into goo or explodes. Either way, it sounds really painful, but you basically liquefy. So they keep them frozen, so I guess is a cheaper way of dealing with the problem, just not mess with anything. So that's kind of how they stay for the next 60 or 70 years, until you meet this guy named Dr. Phineas Wells. He's basically a mad scientist who devoted a large portion of his life to thawing out the frozen colonists of the Hope, so they can then help solve the many problems within the Halcyon colony. And as you come to play the game, you find there are a lot of problems within the Halcyon colony. A lot of it stems from the board and how they treat the citizens of the Halcyon colony. And there's some other stuff too, like how citizens will treat each other, how different groups within the Halcyon colony that may not be tied to a corporation, although every group in the Halcyon colony is tied to a corporation. You'll find a couple that aren't, but there's also some squabbling going on there. And this being a game made by the guys who made New Vegas, you have the choice to either bring them all together, have them work together, or you have them work under you, as you will see, because I'll put the ending of how I ended Jimmy Choo-Choo's story at the end of this review, so you'll see how that works. But aside from that, that's the main driving thing about this game, is once you get thawed from being frozen by Dr. Phineas Wells, you're his first successful thaw. He's been trying for a lot, and there's actually a couple of body counts. He has a body count for it, which is kind of messed up, which is part of the end game as well, where you can choose to like forgive him for that, or different type of dialogue options, which I also like, because there's a lot of dialogue options, and you can even get different endings, like different dialogue endings from certain characters depending on what you do, which is a good part about this game, is there's multiple endings, because you can do it like New Vegas, where you can either control the colony, become become its new president, I guess you could say, or become a new dictator, or just leave the thing in chaos. And that's the many different choices. That's the freedom I like about this game and how the story. But there is still a concrete story. Once you get thawed out by Phineas Wells, you go to meet up with his contact because his ship gets shot, as you saw. He can no longer meet up with his contact, so he sends you in an escape pod. So once you meet up with yeah, what happens though is you end up landing. Your escape pod ends up landing on the former captain of the Unreliable, a guy by the name of the unfortunate Mr. Alex Hawthorne. May he rest in peace. But once you do kill him, you then go to his ship. You talk to the AI aboard, Ada. She's kind of witty. I have a feeling there's more to her than meets the eye, and I think she might be hiding the fact that she may actually be sentient, or just good at pretending she is. Either way, after you have a short little talk with her, you realize you need to fix the ship. There's a couple of missions you do in the starting zone where you get the thing you need to fix the ship, and once you fix the ship, that's when the game kind of opens up in the sense that you can travel from different points. But as you play the main story, it unlocks more of the different areas. Like playing side missions won't unlock any of the other maps. It'll be playing the main missions that will get you to different maps. Which is interesting. I guess that's one of the ways you keep it from not being a truly open world game, in the sense that you have to kind of stay in one area for a little while. You can choose to do the side quest in there, or just do the main mission, go through onto the next one. But I'd say, like, take for instance this meeting between the Iconoclast and MSI. These two guys, this is one of the choices I did for Jamie Two Shoes, in the sense that I got them to both work together, and in order to do that, you got to do a couple of things, like including getting that Graham dude, who was the first head of Iconoclast. You got to get him deposed, because come to find out, he's done some kind of shady things in the past, and the second in command has some squabbles about it, and that's one of the side missions you have to do if you want to get them to work together, which is interesting. And I do like the fact I do like doing that. That's what I like doing in Fallout New Vegas. I really enjoyed the wild card ending in Fallout New Vegas, where you became the president, and depending on what you do with all the different groups within New Vegas, you could have them all work with you, and you become like the leader and stuff. And that's kind of what you can do in this game, and which is really fun, I have to say. And that's probably my first like about the game. Is the same reason why I really enjoyed New Vegas, is the choice, the multiple endings, and being able to do the ending you want based on the character you've chosen to play through with the game, which is fun. Although there is not a overabundance of areas to explore, there is, I'd say, about enough, just about that line that I like. It's a good ratio. The places you can explore are very colorful. They're very beautiful looking. Like, check this out, for instance. Now, this isn't the most graphically stunning game I've ever seen, but it's certainly up there. They put in a lot of polish in this game. Look at this. This is beautiful. This is a cave in Monarch, or Terra 1, depending on what you want, depending on who you ask, really. But the way they get the particles to look, and just the atmosphere, it's like, it looks like an alien cave on a planet somewhere in space, and I get that feeling from it, and it's beautiful. It's good. This game is good at setting atmosphere. Like, take for instance this scene. This is one of the side quests for, I mean, not a side, it's a companion quest for Vicar Max. Yes, and basically you go to this asteroid that's being partially terraformed, because the company wanted it to be terraformed for mining, but they pull it out at the end. Now you have a couple of people living here and there on the partially terraformed areas. And what you have here is basically Maxon is trying to find himself, in a sense, trying to make peace with himself and find himself. So, like anybody who does that, he decides to take some drugs or some meditation enhancer or something, what the shaman lady says. But it's interesting the way they can build atmosphere easily just by just changing the view of the screen, making it all blurry, and with the colors too. That, again, that's one of the things I like about this game, is it's very colorful, and they definitely utilize the colors well in this game to like give you different like emotions and feelings and whatnot, which is fun, and it does help. Like for Fallout, I can understand why there's a lot of grays and blacks and brown. It's very dingy, dirty. It's because it's after the nuclear apocalypse. This isn't necessarily an apocalypse an apocalypse or after apocalypse. It's more of a space colony kind of thing, and it feels like it's alien, like the areas you go to, because of the bright, vivid colors and the atmosphere and like the lighting and the particles. And every now and then you get that's what I think helps an open world game, and that's why I feel like it does have aspects of open world, but I say it's not because it's spacious. It's big, but it's not open world. But they have the right atmosphere, which kind of pulls you in and makes you want to explore more past the limiting boundaries of what there is to be explored. And that's something I find very intriguing about this game, because I want to actually look around because of how the game looks, which is cool. And with that being said, I just wanted to close off by giving this game a rating. And if I had to rate this game, I would give it a 9 out of 10. I'd give it a 10 out of 10, but to be honest, I'm a big fan of Fallout and Skyrim. If they had the whole being able to switch from third person to first, I'd give it a 10 out of 10. I know it's kind of a dumb reason not to give it, but that's actually not the only reason why I'd say, because I would say that the first person to third person thing, and if it were a little bit longer, I'd say maybe another couple hours, or if the main story were a little bit longer and gave us access to one or two more planets we could then explore for a little bit, then I would have given it a 10 out of 10. But this game is worth buying at $60, and had I known would have enjoyed this game so much, I would have probably spent even more for the deluxe, standard, ultra edition, or whatever they had. And that's no joke, because I normally only just, if it's a game that I've invested myself in, like say Kingdom Hearts or another game like God of War, I didn't make a review for that one, but those are games that I've truly invested in. I would spend money. I actually put pre-orders for those ones. I didn't pre-order this game, but should they ever make a second one, I would definitely pre-order the Outer Worlds 2. Now, speaking of second one, I just wanted to end this video off with a little bit of speculation, like DLC possibilities and a possible sequel. For DLC, I have a feeling there might be, because of how many different planets there are, and like I was talking about, like there are planets on the map that you don't go to or can explore. I have a feeling there may be something afterwards, maybe in a couple of months, because this game just came out about a month ago, or less than a month ago. So I'd give it another 2, maybe 3 months, and then they'll start talking about some DLC, because I've enjoyed this game, and I've seen a couple of different reviews for this game. This game is doing good, and games that do good tend to have more support from the developers. And with that being said, I feel like they're going to bring out some DLCs, and they're going to open up some of the planets that we weren't able to explore to explore them, and to further the story, because there's definitely the way it gets left off, regardless of your moral choices or how you want to either bring them together or split them apart. There is room for exploration, and that's kind of what I like about this game. It's left at kind of a cliffhanger with your character and the unreliable. You do get basically arc wrap-ups for all of the companions that do stay with you, if none of them leave or you do anything dumb enough for them to leave. But yeah, that's why I think DLC is definitely a possibility. I would think maybe 1 or 2, because I think if I'm not mistaken, there was DLC for New Vegas, and I'm pretty sure, yeah, there was DLC for New Vegas. But I'm definitely thinking they're going to do some DLC for this, especially if it gets super popular. And if it gets popular enough, there's going to be a second one. And I definitely think there is going to be a second one. Because especially if they make enough money off of it. Because I don't know what the budget was for this game to be made, but I'm pretty sure it's definitely not the same amount as it was for Fallout 4 or so. So I'm going to definitely say that's a possibility that there's going to definitely be a second one coming out of Outer Worlds 2, or whatever they choose to call it. Sorry about that. Drink of water. And with that being said, in conclusion, I just wanted to say that I bought this game because I was partially interested in playing it, and looking back, I don't regret it. And now, if and when the second one comes out, or DLCs, you can definitely count me there, as I will definitely be playing this game. And I'm because of its high replayability, I'm going to be replaying it again. But seeing as there's like 3 or 4 different new games that are just coming out within the next couple of months that are going to take up a lot of my time, Once all of that gets over, I won't be surprised if I find myself going back to this game to play it a different way. But with that being said, I've been the Faded Gamer. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, maybe leave a comment, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.
Engineers woke up in a colony descending headlong into total collapse. With no way to return to Earth, they had no choice but to band together and devote themselves to the cause of saving Halcyon. The people of Halcyon were nothing if not hardy. In the absence of the board's authority, many of the colony's settlements banded together with a single purpose in mind: survival. Life was especially hard in the years to come. Some towns dissolved by attrition and starvation, but most of them found a way to carry on. In the years to come, Halcyon was forced to reckon with its newfound freedom. The board was gone, and for better or worse, the colony was responsible for its own destiny. Between MSI's worker-centric policies and the iconoclast's manpower, Sanjar and Zora were able to rally many of the Terra 2 townships to their cause. MSI's workforce swelled, and the iconoclasts enjoyed a significant surge in their ranks. The board was too distracted by infighting and internal politics to stop MSI from becoming a powerful corporation and a refuge for townships that might have fallen through the cracks. Consumed by paranoia, Lilia Hagen took Sublight Salvage in a controversial direction, openly accusing board officials of an extraterrestrial conspiracy. One day, an accident at the Groundbreaker's docking bay silenced her forever. Time would tell if her replacement could keep the Sublight family together. Adelaide McDevitt replaced Reed Thompson as the leader of Edgewater. She and her followers transformed Edgewater in their image. Anyone loyal to Reed was pressured into leaving town, and those who stayed behind adapted to her way of life. Adelaide transformed the old cannery into a new garden. The nearby Edgewater Cemetery provided a convenient source of fertilizer. As for Reed Thompson, it was said that he lasted exactly 2 days outside the walls of Edgewater. Years later, a marauder was found in possession of his hat. Under the leadership of Junlei Tennyson, the Groundbreaker held firm against corporate influence. The ship's mechanical stability gave Junlei the time to educate a promising generation of engineers schooled in her family's traditions. The future of the Groundbreaker looks promising. The rediscovery of the Hope and the abandonment of the lifetime employment program forced Byzantium to come to terms with some uncomfortable realities about the state of Halcyon. While Byzantines were reluctant to surrender the luxuries they'd grown accustomed to, the board's diminished authority gave them little choice in the matter. Nearly everyone had to learn to make do with less. Some even had to get jobs. It was a dark time indeed. Your influence shifted Ellie's perspective. She finally admitted, albeit grudgingly, that she just might need other people. Sometimes. With a steady income from the life insurance payouts, she was finally able to afford a ship of her own. She hired a small crew and flew supply missions to communities on the fringe. Some of them were even legal. Life in Halcyon was sobering for Felix Millstone. The grand revolution he dreamed of never came. There was no great awakening for the colony, no celebrations in the streets. There was only the hard, desperate work of trying to repair a broken colony. Felix never had a head for numbers, but if there was labor to be done, he was there to help. Eventually, Felix realized that the work of a revolution was done with 2 hands. As much as he enjoyed his adventures aboard the Unreliable, the vicar, known as Max, eventually decided that it was time to move on, to live out the life he had sought so long to create. He knew there were many in the colony who carried burdens much worse than the ones he had struggled with, and he devoted himself to easing their suffering wherever he could. He only ever took up arms again to defend the defenseless. Unshackled from a lifetime of striving and fighting the universe and himself, Vicar Maximilian de Soto was finally at peace. Though Parvati eventually grew comfortable aboard the Unreliable, she never quite came out of her shell. She seemed to prefer the company of Ada to the crew, and she could often be found neck-deep in cables and grease, telling Ada funny stories from her childhood. While the colony fell into chaos, she found an island of relative peace with Ada, and they formed an unusual bond. She decided to remain aboard the Unreliable permanently as its chief and sole engineer. Nyoka returned to Monarch to take another crack at making a permanent life for herself. She formed the Charon Group, a mercenary outfit of ragtag survivalists and wilderness experts. Anyone in need of a guide or just looking to throw back a beer and swap stories could find her camping on the trail or clearing an infestation. The SAM unit that accompanied you spread awareness of the product line's superior sanitation and maintenance capabilities across what was left of the colony. This led to a boost in SAM unit sales. Did you know that SAM units are the longest-lasting, toughest-acting cleaning solution in Halcyon? Minister Clark was released from house arrest, and his contact with you gave him a sense of renewed purpose and vigor. Once it became clear that no help would be coming from Earth, he threw his considerable efforts and talents into helping Halcyon manage the crisis before it. Chairman Rockwell served as the public face for the changes in Halcyon to come. Whenever you needed strings pulled or a voice to sell a policy change, Rockwell was only too happy to oblige. As for Dr. Phineas Wells, he spent his remaining years in his orbital lab. He eventually came to terms with his own past and was able to forgive the mistakes of his younger self by devoting his remaining years to serving the colony. In the end, Dr. Wells was able to save every scientist and engineer aboard the Hope. Over the next decade, nearly all of the Hope's remaining colonists were successfully revived. Halcyon saw a period of rapid technological and scientific advancement. Breakthroughs in dietary supplements saved the colony from starvation. Geoengineering projects and social reforms began to change the structure and character of the colony. Dr. Wells laid the groundwork for the project to save the colony, but he would never live to see the fruits of his labor. He passed away a few years later. His work was carried on by the scientists and engineers he revived. Today, Halcyon has stabilized. The people of the colony work hard to adapt to their new circumstances. Nearby colonies send aid and supplies. Life will never be easy in Halcyon, but for the first time in its history, there exists a sense of real, genuine hope about the future. And what about you, the unplanned variable in the history of Halcyon? Long after Wells passed away, you carried on his work with more energy, determination, and brilliance than he could ever muster. The years that followed were hard, but Halcyon survived by the efforts of the Hope's most promising colonists, the greatest of which was you. No one knows what's happened to Earth, and no one knows what the future has in store for Halcyon. All we know for certain is this: the name of the Unreliable and that of its intrepid captain will remain the subject of countless stories for years to come.